Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, money and politics reporter Kyle Mullins. Kyle, thanks for coming on.
Always great to be here, Brittany.
We are talking about one of the contenders for president, Nikki Haley, and her fortune. You're reporting that her fortune grew by 6 figures in the last month while she was on the campaign trail. So before we dive into that, can you bring us back, and how much was Forbes estimating she was originally worth?
Sure. So last summer, we started our project where we were valuing the net worths of all of the presidential candidates. Most of those candidates were Republicans, of course, because they had a competitive primary, or at least semi-competitive. And so Nikki Haley at the time, we estimated was worth about $8 million.
And break down that wealth for us. A lot of money. Where is it coming from?
So Nikki Haley wasn't actually worth that much when she left her last government post as the UN ambassador under the Trump administration in 2018, 2019. She left that post. She was worth less than $1 million. And in addition, her family, her parents were struggling with some debt. And so her financial prospects were not looking fantastic. But Nikki Haley did what a lot of ex-politicians do, only more so. She leveraged basically every path that ex-politicians have to make money. She was giving speeches. She wrote 2 books. She joined some corporate boards. She did consulting work. She was making money hand over fist. And when we next get a picture of her financial, her financial disclosures when she files to run for president, she was worth millions and millions of dollars. She declared lots of money from these speeches, lots of money from this book income. She had bought a beautiful, gigantic home on an island off the coast of South Carolina that is worth, I think it's worth over $4 million nowadays. I don't remember what her equity is in it, but she's got a very very nice home, very large investment portfolio. She's very financially comfortable.
So when she left the Trump administration after serving as UN ambassador, you're saying she stayed booked and busy, and I want you to talk about the United Homes Group and her role there a little bit for us.
Sure. So one of the corporate boards that she joined was a company called Great Southern Homes in 2021. And she joined the board at a really critical time because Great Southern Homes was kind of looking to go public. And in 2022, they actually ended up doing so. They signed a merger agreement with a special purpose acquisition company, a SPAC, and they were able to go public without doing the sort of traditional IPO. And so in early 2023, that deal is complete. The company goes public. And the whole time, she's been getting compensated through a combination of cash and stock. And so she made a fair amount of money. She owns about $400,000 in their stock right now. And that's in addition to some of the cash compensation that she's gotten over the years. And she also was compensated with options. And options are a very common, type of compensation for corporate board members to get. And they allow people to buy stock at a particular price, oftentimes less than or sometimes less than the publicly traded price. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but that's what we're getting into.
Kyle, you've read my mind. I want you to get into the nitty-gritty of her stock options at UHG. How many installments did she receive, and when did they vest?
Sure. So I forgot to mention, after the merger happened, the company was renamed United Home Group, which is why we're talking about UHG. And yes, she got roughly 100,000 options in connection with the merger. And they were at a very, very generous price. She could buy stock in UHG for a little over $2. And they vest over the course of 4 years in tranches. About a quarter of them vest each year for 4 years. And so her first chunk vested when the stock price was doing pretty well. That was worth about $240,000 at the time. They've since gone down in value. But in January, as she was barnstorming Manchester, New Hampshire, running for the Republican nomination, her second tranche vested. And so because of that, her net worth overnight increased by around $150,000. In other words, about twice the median household income in the United States in one day.
Wow, a lot of money. And you're predicting and you're reporting that if she doesn't become the president, as we know, she is a long shot contender according to the polls right now, and if she stays on the board of UHG, you predict her wealth will increase. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so so if she stays on the board, she's going to be getting compensation for that. Good for her. And then additionally, she's got more options that are going to vest. She's got another chunk of options separate from the 100,000 I mentioned before at a bit of a higher strike price. Those are going to vest in May, are going to start vesting in May. They also vest over 4 years. And so assuming the stock does a little better than it's doing right now, it's been kind of on the slide for the past couple of months. Assuming the stock does better, those options will be worth something, and all of a sudden she'll have some more wealth popping into her net worth. If, of course, the share price, which is currently around $7, if it stays below the strike price of those other options that she's receiving, then they won't be worth anything at all. Because why would you buy a stock for $11 when you could buy it for $7?
And let's move on from UHG for a second. As we know, she was on the board of Boeing until 2020, and she owns some stock in that company. Can you talk about that for us?
Sure. She was on the board of Boeing. That was another one of the corporate boards she joined. She got paid a combination of cash and stock while on that board as well. But she resigned in March 2020 as the COVID pandemic was starting. Boeing sought a very large bailout from the federal government, and she says she was opposed to their seeking a bailout, and so she resigned the board in kind of in protest of that. There are definitely questions about whether a Republican politician, somebody who believes in small government and free markets, whether they should be serving on the board of a company that's seeking a bailout from the federal government. Maybe she had a presidential run in mind. We don't know.
She is the last competitive challenger standing between Trump and the nomination. So I want to talk first about how does her net worth stack up to the former president's?
She's not particularly close to the former president in terms of net worth. Donald Trump, we last estimated, is worth $2.6 billion. Nikki Haley, like I said, is worth about $8 million.
And similarly, where is she in the polls compared to him?
Also not close to him in the polls. Nikki Haley, last time I checked the averages, there's a 50-point gap between her and former President Trump. So her chances of catching up to him in terms of net worth and in terms of the polling, not looking so good.
But still, $8 million net worth, nothing to sneeze at, certainly.
Not at all.
Kyle Mullins, per usual, it's always such a joy to have you on. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to do it.